So the Orient Ray 2, I've said in the thumbnail, it has the X factor. And what does that mean? You're going to find out about what all that means. In this video, you're going to get all the details. You're going to get macros, close-ups, all that stuff, outdoor shots, and all the details. But it's also a little bit of a discussion point as well, because this watch, although excellent value at £123, it's still got a few things which aren't going to be up to scratch if you only ever used to see videos about homage watches, which obviously, as you know, have really good specs for the money. But this is a whole different ballgame. This isn't an homage watch. And there's something different about it which is going to captivate you fellow watch lovers. And that's why I wanted to discuss in this video and share with you. And I hope you enjoy it. I'll see you in a moment. So I'd like to begin, as usual, with the stats and specs. These are the important bits you're going to need to know just to get the ball rolling. So what have we got here? Now, I'm going to start with just the weight, because I always rely on my good friend Gipas here. And with the 2 links I took out of this to size up for my 7-inch wrist, it weighed 167. 2 links out, 158. Nice, comfortable weight. It's really well balanced, so you don't really feel like it's top heavy. That's another positive. And the other thing that helps it not feel top heavy, it's only 13.2mm thick, which is decent, and it's in proportion to the 41mm case size. Lovely big dial, 31.5mm dial, so it's one of those golden ratio kind of watches in terms of its proportions, which is why I think later on I'm going to discuss with its design, it works so well. The thing that isn't quite so proportional is this 5.5mm screw down crown, which has got a nice bit of a signing on there, and that aids for the 200 meters water resistance. It is obviously screw down case back as well, which is etched. I've still got the original sticker on there. I like to leave that on. And I've got 120 click unidirectional bezel, which got a lovely feel to it. A little bit tricky to get a grip on it, but it's light. It's not stiff or anything like that, so it's easy to rotate. And it lines up okay. It's not perfect, but it's actually okay. But again, I'll go into detail later on. I've got mineral crystal, which is tough. It's obviously going to scratch in time if you wear your watch a lot. It's either going to bug you or it's not. Same with the aluminium bezel insert. Love the finish of the bezel insert. Aluminium has a whole different texture and warmth to it compared to ceramic, which is often glossy. Or if it's matte, it can not actually look that great, to be honest. So sometimes aluminium bezels do have a different and better aesthetic, but we'll go into more detail with that later. Lume wise, it's got Seiko's Lume, basically. It's Lume Bright, and it's loaded in there. You'll get to see all details about the Lume a bit later on. And the movement in this is the in-house movement, which is the F6922. Again, the movement section, I'll discuss how that's going and a few more details about that. So we've got, again, automatic movement. See the day and the date complication there, which is very useful. And bracelet wise, it tapers from 22 with hollow end links, but they are really well fitted, really good. And it tapers down not very much to about 19.5, and then it jumps up to about 21.5 at this all pressed clasp. But again, we're spoilt with many homage watches at this price point, having all this part being milled. But I think if you can have a pressed clasp that is beautifully finished with no defects or faults or any uncomfortable bits, I'm still happy with that as well. That's where this comes in. There's no sharp edges, and it's really nicely made, perfect. No sharp edges, no rattly bits either. Nice bit of pressed logo action going on there. Push action, fold over clasp bit there, double pushers, plenty of micro adjust on here. I've got 4. So all I had to do is take 2 links out, and it literally fits me perfectly. I don't even notice it on my wrist. It's that comfortable. And these are push pins that come out, but they are solid links as well. They're not those awful fold over jobbies, which are quite cheap and nasty. These are actually solid links, and the pins come out fairly easily. They're a little bit stiff in there, which is actually reassuring. But these hollow end links are perfectly fitting. They're really nice. There's no play in them, and they're female end links as well, so it's good. Helps it conform really well. See, that lug to lug length is only 46.5. And what does that mean? Well, it's going to wear it really well on the wrist. Forget the case size being 41-ish, which is not too big, but for some people be concerned that they may not fit their slimmer wrists. I'm going to pop this on my wrist to show you why On a 7-inch wrist, it's just perfect, and even less because it conforms so immediately. It'll be really good for even slimmer wrists. So I'll just pop it on now. So as you can see, really nice. The reason why lug to lug is really important to know, it's probably one of the most important measurements, not just the case size. If you've got a good lug to lug, i.e. it's shorter, less than 50, the better for most wrist sizes, and the height of the watch not being too dramatic. 13 to 14 mil is fine. Much more, it could start to get out of proportion. This just seems to be so well balanced. So before we move on to the movement bit, I'll just show you how you would do the time and date adjust. Is you just unscrew the crown. There's no pop actually. When you unscrew it, there's no little pop like you can often get when you unscrew crowns. There's seals and gaskets in here. Can't see them unfortunately, but they're in there. And that helps it for its 200 meters water resist. So the first click out will be for the day and the date. You turn one way to turn the day and then the other way to turn the date. And then you put it all the way out and it has hacking, which means the seconds hand will stop, as you can see there. And if you push it all the way back in, before you screw it in, it's got manual wind, which is medium resistance. It's smooth and it doesn't feel like it's going to break like it can do on some other movements. You know, it feels like you could wind it all day. It's not, oh god. The one thing I do notice as well, it's not that easy to screw back in. It's a bit of a pain because this crown is quite small and it doesn't thread really easily and it's a little bit slippery. It's not got a really good grip on it. Oh, bash the camera. God, literally every video, I guarantee you I'll bash the camera. It's my trademark move. Anyway, that's pretty much all the stats and specs. Let's move on to, you're going to see the movement, outdoor shots, the Lume, all that stuff. And then we'll finish off with my final thoughts and conclusions as to why I think this watch has the X factor. And no, it's not a cheesy sing-along competition show with Simon Cowell. It's a whole different thing. See you in a minute. So what can I teach you about the movement in this watch? Really, well, for 40 years, Orient used the previous iteration of this movement. This is the F6922. Running really well in this watch. It's a 21,600 beat per hour movement. And we've got 22 joules. It's got about 41 hour power reserve. Its stated tolerance is -15 to +25 seconds a day. It's got hacking, it's got hand winding. It's a great set of specs for effectively an in-house movement in a entry-level diver's watch. Fantastic. And I've been getting, without regulating this watch, +3 to 4 seconds a day on average. This is static test at the moment. You can see just in this position. I've tested it in all the other positions and I've worn it day in, day out and not regulated or checked the time, and it's been very consistent. So that is a great start and I'm happy with this movement. And it's only been around since about 2016, and it was the Mako 2 and the Ray 2 dive watches in which it was initially put in. So very good news. So if you're looking for one of these watches, I would say if yours is as good as the one that's in this watch, you'll be very happy indeed. So yeah, let's move on to the next bit. Orient, being part of the Epson group, as is Seiko, they've got really good Lume. Effectively, they can share the proprietary Lume system. This is Lume Bright, and it holds out so well. For this kind of entry-level price that you're paying for one of these watches, to get Lume this good is fantastic. So this is 20 minutes, and it's still perfectly legible. Holds out so well. So this is a kind of watch, when I really think about it, why does it have the X factor? I think it's because if you just look at things on paper, you'd immediately criticize its failings. I'll start with those, the cons, if you will. And that is things like it's got the hollow end links, it's got you know, aluminium bezel insert, mineral glass, it's got press clasp. You know, you'd immediately be scoffing at those things and going, oh no, I can get a Pagani design. But you know what is interesting? I've noticed, what is better, having ceramic and sapphire and really, you know, a solid end link bracelet with a mill clasp and screw links, or something that is less sort of high spec but is executed perfectly. Because we've all seen, if you've not seen any of my other videos, there's often little failings here and there with either clasps breaking or screws cross-threading or not being easy to take out, or the solid end links not fitting very well, or there's high and low spots, or they're difficult to take out on and off. Yeah, you're getting the spec, but you're just not getting the actual really good build. I mean, it does happen, but we can't just base it on that, because the other cons of this watch, which before I go waffling on about all the pros, because there are more, there's a little bit of an alignment issue. If you look at the marker at the 3 o'clock, it's slightly higher, and you can see this little dimple here. I would say that should line up with the center point of the crown, but it doesn't, as you can see there. It's kind of higher, but then the pip at the 12 o'clock lines up, everything else seems to line up. So it's just a bit of a weird, it's not obviously a deal breaker to me at least, and it's okay. Everything else lines up and it's all very neatly done. The finish is extremely well done. I mean, let's say the polishing, etc., the contrast is pretty neat between the brush at the top and then the polished sides, for example. But then the bracelet as well, even though it's extremely comfortable, really easy to size, and the watch is extremely easy and comfortable to wear and easy to tweak if you wanted to make it fit you even better. It's I'd say, because it's a relatively small case size for a 22mm lug width, I would like maybe a stronger taper, maybe down to 18. That would have maybe helped this clasp and strap situation not look quite so bulky, but it's not ugly. I think it's just everything else proportion wise is done pretty well, and I think they could have made that better. And talking about proportions, the one thing I think lets this down a little bit is this crown could be a touch bigger, not in depth, just in height, so it's easier to turn and better grip on it, because this grip on there is just not very good. It's a bit slippery, it's a bit tricky to just get a purchase on, especially as it's nestled in these crown guards. And for me, I do like sapphire. I know it has higher reflective properties, but if you were to do an upgrade, which I will be doing on this watch, by the way, the AR coating you can get on those, eradicates that reflective problem you can get with sapphire as an upgrade. But mineral is very clear, the clarity is excellent, but it's just that vulnerability I personally worry about, and I know a lot of you guys worry sometimes about a watch getting battered up and scratched. I just can't stand scratched glass. For me, it's the worst thing personally. Same with a bezel. I just don't like bezels getting scratched. That's why I think a sapphire or a ceramic insert, for me, as for the watch looking fresher for longer, is a good upgrade. But the thing that makes this have its X factor is, I think for me, what gives it that is the aesthetics and the proportion, that golden ratio, that magic of the relationship between the dial size, even down to the finish of the dial. It's got this lovely texture to it. It's like a matte but grainy texture, which also matches beautifully this grainy matte texture in the aluminium bezel insert. They work really well together. The lovely, really big indices, so legible. The lovely long hands, the tip of the second hand is beautiful and really contrasts against the black dial. It's so easy to read. Look at those hands, they're absolutely loaded with lume. It's so bright. The lume is another positive. I love these little indents into the bezel here, they're clever. Just helps break it up a bit in the design. It actually brings it in a bit. I think that helps it make it look smaller than it is somehow having these notches in the bezel insert somehow is a bit of an optical illusion of bringing it all in a little bit. I like the sort of variation of text. You've got italic and bold mixed up on there, Orient then automatic, and then you've got water resistant 200 meter. I think that's clever. So it's just sort of flows with different fonts and textures on there. It's really nice. And the lovely window around the day and the date, really nice, just really well polished. The hands and the indices and the surrounds of them, it really plays with the light nicely, and again adds contrast to that lovely matte dial. It's so legible, and that's what you want from a tall watch or a dive watch. It's something that's just really easy to see. I love when I go in the dark and the lume is just glowing, and it's just a nice little reminder you've got a really good sort of set of features which mean a lot to me. I mean, you don't really notice sapphire until you get a scratch on the mineral, but having good lume, an accurate movement, and all these lovely design features. You notice them all the time, and that's why I think it's really well executed. It's a quirky choice because it's not a Seiko. Orient is a bit more unheard of, especially in the UK. People have heard of it in horology, but I've met people who you think know about watches and they've never heard of Orient watches before. And the fact that they always have in-house movements. You know, they're not doing a slightly modified Seiko movement. They've got their own movements, and they have been doing so for about 70 years now. And you put all that together with just the proportions. That's another key thing. I keep saying it, proportions. Everything works in harmony together to create a really good looking yet simple dive watch, a tool watch for beginners, for many a gateway watch. And what does gateway mean? Well, if you've never had an automatic good value timepiece, what an amazing piece to start with. That's my tribute to this gorgeous Orient Ray 2. I hope you've had all the details you need and have enjoyed my take on it. I've thoroughly enjoyed sharing it with you, and I'll see you in the next video where, if you stuck to the end, you're going to get to hear me say the following, and that is, this is ripe for modding. And I've got quite a few bits I'm going to change on this. Not everything, because I don't want to totally transform it. I'm going to tweak the few things which I think could be its main weaknesses and turn them into positives. So if you're not subscribed already, subscribe and you'll get to see that in the future. If you're subscribed already, bear with me, I've got to do the mods and I'll show it and share it with you. All the best, guys. See you in the next one. Bye for now.